It's 4 in the afternoon on Friday, November 7th here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. We begin at the nation's National Assembly after months of discussions and heated disputes that brought parliamentary affairs to a grinding halt. Lawmakers finally passed 3 special bills this Friday related to April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. It represents a minor victory for victims' families who may now finally get some answers to the many questions surrounding the events leading up to the disaster. Myung-kil reports.
3 special bills, all related to April's ferry disaster, were finally passed into law after more than 6 months of strenuous efforts. First among them is a Sewol-ho ferry bill, which will launch a special investigative committee composed of 17 members who will work for 18 months to find out what caused April's disaster that left more than 300 people dead or missing. A special prosecutor will also be appointed to investigate and indict those found responsible for the tragedy. The second bill, also related to the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, is called the Yubyung-on Law, after the de facto owner of the sunken ferry. It gives the government more authority to go after and confiscate wealth that is illegally accumulated by members of a family. The third bill is the revised Government Organization Act, which sets up 2 new ministries under the Prime Minister's office. The new ministry that deals with disaster and safety management has 2 sub-level agencies to oversee the Korea Coast Guard and the National Emergency Management Agency. The other ministry will deal with the government's personnel matters. With the passage of the 3 bills, the 2 rival parties have finally put their months-long battle over the special bills to rest and turned their full focus toward reviewing next year's budget. Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
And South Korea has taken another step closer to upgrading its missile defense system and by extension standing up to North Korea's threats by itself. The U.S. State Department has approved the sale of well over 100 interceptor missiles to Seoul. Our Kim Han-bin reports.
The U.S. government has given the green light to the possible sale of PAC-3 interceptor missiles and related equipment to South Korea. The U.S. Defense Secretary Cooperation Agency says the State Department has approved South Korea's request to buy 136 PAC-3 missiles at an estimated cost of $1.4 billion. That request has now been passed on to the U.S. Congress, who will decide whether to approve it. South Korea wants to use the PAC-3 missiles to upgrade its present PAC-2 air defense system by 2020 to better defend against threats from North Korea. The PAC-3, a low-tier missile that can hit a ballistic missile up to 40 kilometers in the air, is viewed as essential for Seoul's plan to build its Korea air and missile defense system. The PAC-3 missile, which is designed to make a direct impact on an enemy target, is more efficient and accurate than the PAC-2, which is made to explode near a target. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency says the upgrade would not only provide South Korea with greater capabilities, but would also decrease the Korean military's reliance on U.S. combat forces. That is viewed as being crucial for the successful transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul, which was recently delayed until sometime in the mid-2020s. Kim Han-bin, ARIRANG News.
Now, it has emerged that North Korea told a former American detainee to ask for a visit by an ex-U.S. president for his release. Speaking to Voice of America, Jeffrey Fowle, the American who was detained in North Korea for 6 months, said Pyongyang officials wanted a high-level U.S. envoy to intervene. Fowle said he was asked to make the request and describe his desperate situation when he talked to American media outlets CNN and the Associated Press during his captivity. The 56-year-old entered North Korea on a tourist visa early this year and was arrested for leaving a Bible in a nightclub bathroom. He was freed last month, but 2 Americans are still being held by the North. And the global community is taking action to address North Korea's widely documented human rights abuses. The European Union on Thursday briefed the UN General Assembly Committee on a resolution they presented last month together with Japan, urging the Security Council to refer Pyongyang to the International Criminal Court. The EU representative, Italian Councillor Emilia Gatto, told the committee that they are deeply concerned about systematic rights abuses in the north, adding the world can no longer ignore the suffering of North Korean people. The resolution, co-sponsored by some 40 countries, calls for a probe based on the findings of a UN inquiry. A committee vote is expected later this month before the measure goes to the full assembly in December. And the mystery surrounding the death of a Japanese national kidnapped by North Korea in the 1970s may have been solved. A local newspaper has unveiled some new discoveries about Megumi Yokota's possible fate. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Megumi Yokota, who has become a symbol of Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea, may have been poisoned. South Korea's Geunhye newspaper reported Friday that Yokota had been locked up in a psychiatric facility in Pyongyang, where she was force-fed sleeping pills and given shots, which led to her death either from poisoning or overdose in 1994. That's the same year North Korea claims Yokota committed suicide. The newspaper cites a joint investigative report by the Japanese government and South Korea's Separated Abductee Families Group that met in September with 2 North Koreans who worked at the asylum. The North Korean workers recalled seeing blue spots all over Yokota's body, evidence that she was either poisoned or given excessive pills, and said she was buried along with 5 others under the orders of the North Korean regime. That could explain why remains returned by North Korea in 2004 that were supposed to be of Yokota did not match her DNA. The Japanese government, however, denied the report out of Seoul, saying it lacks credibility. Yokota was taken by North Korean agents on her way home from school in 1977, when she was 13 years old. Her story is the most high-profile abduction case, but Tokyo officially recognizes 17 victims and believes more than 800 people were kidnapped with North Korean involvement. Japan and North Korea agreed to reopen an investigation into the fates of the Japanese abductees in July. A first report on the probe was expected in late August, but North Korea has not submitted one yet. The latest findings, if proven true, are bound to cause friction in the ongoing negotiations. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye will soon embark on a 9-day trip to China, Myanmar, and Australia to participate in 3 major multilateral gatherings: the APEC, the ASEAN +3, and G20 summits. Throughout her tour, President Park is expected to drum up support for her economic and security initiatives. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
President Park Geun-hye will open her trip on Monday at the 2014 APEC Leaders Summit in Beijing at the forum's Business Advisory Council. There, the Korean president will introduce her administration's efforts to spur domestic growth and expand the job market through social reforms, deregulation, and supporting creative industries, often dubbed the 3-year Economic Innovation Plan. At the Leaders Summit, President Park will discuss a new growth engine for the global economic recovery and ways to better integrate member economies. She's also scheduled for bilateral talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where much attention will be focused on the progress of FTA negotiations. President Park will then travel to Myanmar for the ASEAN +3 summit and the East Asia Summit. Here, she will urge for greater regional cooperation to counter the Ebola outbreak and the threats posed by Islamic State militants in the Middle East. The Korean president will also have a chance to promote her North Korea-related policies and to boost ties with the ASEAN. For the final leg of her trip, President Park will travel to Brisbane, Australia for this year's G20 summit, where she will again speak about her economic innovation plan as an initiative to address the global problems of low growth and high unemployment. The Korean president will also meet the Saudi Crown Prince to seek out more opportunities for Korean firms to invest in the Arab country's infrastructure construction. Promoting her administration's economic and security policies to world leaders, President Park hopes to highlight Korea's contributions to global security and prosperity, thereby further cementing its status as a major middle power. 최유선, 아리랑 뉴스.
And over in Beijing, the top diplomats of South Korea and China held talks today to set the agenda for a bilateral summit between their leaders next week. Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se told his Chinese counterpart Hwang Ji-hye that he is one of two partners, along with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, that he meets with the most, noting that their frequent meetings are a sign of their close ties. Hwang said Beijing is satisfied with the current stage of development of its bilateral ties with Seoul. But any hopes of a long-awaited bilateral summit between President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the sidelines of next week's APEC summit are fading. Both leaders in new statements have shown that they remain worlds apart in their views on how to improve relations. Son Jung-in reports.
The Korea-Japan Cooperation Committee held a joint meeting in Seoul on Thursday to come up with ways to improve strained bilateral ties leading into next year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties being normalized between Seoul and Tokyo. In a congratulatory message read by Korea's Vice Foreign Minister, President Park Geun-hye emphasized that Korea and Japan are important partners that share mutual interests and therefore must work together to open up a bright future. However, she pointed out that there are still many obstacles facing the two countries. Meanwhile, in a statement read by Japan's ambassador to Korea, Korobesho, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he believes it is important for the two countries to engage in dialogue to settle their differences. Abe called for an honest discussions at all levels, including a summit without any preconditions. But as President Park has stated that Japan must first show sincerity and a commitment to addressing the sexual enslavement of women by the Japanese military during wartime, hopes are fading of a Korea-Japan summit on the sidelines of the APEC summit in China next week. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Millions of dollars have already been donated, but Korea is about to physically join the global war on Ebola with actual feet on the ground in one of the hardest hit countries. The government says a ministerial advance team will travel to Sierra Leone next week to make the necessary arrangements for trips by more medical teams over the next couple of months. Kwon So-ah has this report.
As announced last month, Korea is joining in the global fight against Ebola by taking the next step in sending its own medical personnel to West Africa. Seoul's defense ministry says it will send an advanced support team to Ebola-stricken Sierra Leone for 9 days starting next Thursday. The team, which includes 11 officials from the defense, health, and foreign ministries, will first make a stop in Britain to prepare for the review along with British staff. Sierra Leone is one of the 3 hardest-hit countries, along with Liberia and Guinea. Latest data from the World Health Organization shows around 1,500 people have died of the virus in Sierra Leone. And while this is much lower than Liberia's death toll, the number of patients in Sierra Leone is alarmingly high. According to the Africa Governance Initiative, an African leaders supporting organization, at the end of October, the number of new daily cases in and around Sierra Leone's capital of Freetown had jumped to 12, 9 times higher than the 1.3 cases reported per day in early September. The AGI said that while the outbreak seems to have slowed in Liberia, it's still spreading very fast in Sierra Leone. A big concern for the Korean personnel is that 5 doctors in the country have already died after contracting Ebola. Despite those worries, volunteers from Korea are eager to help in any way they can, with the number of applications to travel to West Africa outstripping expectations. After the first team completes its safety checkups, further groups made up of military, health, and other civil specialists will be sent to the region through the end of January. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
OECD has revised down Korea's growth outlook for next year, and it's calling for more flexible monetary and fiscal policies as well as structural reforms that support the specific needs of respective countries. Kim Min-ji reports.
The OECD says it expects the Korean economy to grow 3.8% in 2015. The research body on Thursday released a preliminary forecast for major economies ahead of the G20 summit set to open next week in Brisbane. The projection is 0.4 percentage points lower than its previous forecast made in May and slightly under the Korean government's forecast of 4%. However, the OECD expects Korea to grow 4.1% in 2016. For the global economy, the OECD also revised down its forecast by 0.1 percentage point to 3.3% this year.
Unfortunately, growth rates continue to disappoint. Once again, we've marked down global growth.
But the OECD does expect the global economy to accelerate to 3.7% next year and 3.9% in 2016. Meanwhile, the organization says the recovery remains robust in the U.S., projecting growth of more than 3% for 2015. This is in contrast to the Eurozone, which is expected to pick up slowly from 0.8% this year to 1.1% next year. As for China, the world's second-largest economy, the OECD estimated growth would slow from 7.3% this year to fall into the 6% range in 2016. Citing downside risks such as threats of a prolonged stagnation in the euro area, market volatility, and high levels of debt in some advanced and emerging economies, the OECD stressed the need for monetary, fiscal, and structural policies. It added that reforms to tax, trade, labor, and product markets will benefit domestic investment and global trade and support greater employment around the world. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
And the 3-week-long International Telecommunication Union Conference comes to a close this Friday afternoon in Korea's southern port city of Busan. Some 50 resolutions have been adopted by ITU member nations during the event, 3 of which were proposed by the host country of Korea. Among them, countries agreed to put ICT on the front line of tackling global issues such as fighting Ebola and bolstering aviation safety through the use of real-time flight data trafficking. This is in the wake of missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Some 3,500 officials, including ministers and vice ministers from over 170 countries, gathered for the event. And while the ITU meeting in Busan wraps up today after a very successful 3-week Run One event is still running on the sidelines, though, the Science and Creativity Festival, and packed full with hands-on-hand and exciting ways for students to think outside the box. Connie Kim reports from Busan.
You can see it, try it, and feel it. It's ICT, information and communications technology, combined with science technology, which has become a vital part of our daily lives. Smart classrooms seek to provide education to students all over the world. This can be seen in one of the smart classrooms that Korea is seeking to make available all over the world. Be it in disaster-affected regions or in rural communities, this container-reformed smart classroom can charge itself through solar panels on the roof. This smartboard, for example, asks students to draw lines on the board to make the same 4 shapes. Now, by sending the same screen to students via their tablet PC textbooks, everyone gets an opportunity to try it out. In addition to the smart technology, students during the Korea Science and Creativity Festival were also able to engage in experiments and activities that came together under the umbrella of science and IT.
Snowboarding combined with science was such an amazing experience. I would like to see more of these.
For the exhibitors, they say it's an opportunity to meet people and promote their newest technology.
A lot of students seem to be amazed when they see 3D printers. By showing people how objects get printed in 3D, it's an opportunity to promote them.
It's these science technologies that the Science Ministry believes are going to be the growth engines of Korea's economy. During the annual Science and Creativity Festival held on the sidelines of the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, Hundreds of schools, institutions, and companies have laid out some 400 creative programs that may become a part of our everyday lives in the very near future. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News, Busan.
And Koreans are notorious for working some of the longest hours in the world. The daily grind might be a little less grueling if there was some light at the end of the tunnel in the form of a vacation. But a new survey shows that Koreans take some of the fewest vacation days in the world as well. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Do you use all your vacation days? If you are in Korea, chances are you don't. Global travel site Expedia.com's annual vacation deprivation survey of nearly 8,000 employed adults in 24 countries has Korea ranked at the bottom for the number of paid vacation days per year. And of the short vacation days that Korean employees do get, many don't even use all of them. People in European countries like France, Denmark, Germany, and Spain all enjoy more than 27 paid vacation days per year, nearly twice as many as most Asia-Pacific and North American countries. Korea was ranked last out of the 24 countries at just 8.6 days. Adding insult to injury, more than 60% of the Koreans surveyed weren't even able to spend all of their short vacation days, the highest mark among the surveyed countries. So why all the work and less play? Respondents said their work schedules did not allow them to take all their vacation days. Many said they had to either delay or cancel vacations altogether due to work. It's yet more evidence that Koreans are vacation deprived, adding credence to calls that a shift in the work-life balance here requires attention and action. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Hello and TGIF, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the latest weather forecast. Today is Iltong here in Korea, which is one of the seasonal indicators marking the beginning of winter, and definitely conditions are chillier than yesterday under partly cloudy skies. Now rain is falling on the eastern coast, which will continue through later tonight. About 5 to 20 millimeters are expected in those areas, so an umbrella will come in handy. Otherwise, chilly autumn weather is in store for most regions. As for the weekend, clouds will move in nationwide and sprinkles should drop on Jeju, but Sunday is shaping up to be a clear and bright autumn day, perfect for spending time outdoors. On to the readings. Seoul tops out at 16, Daegu and Gwangju 17, Busan reaches 18. As for other regions, Daejeon hits 15, Jeju 16, Dokdo peaks at 11. Those are the updates we're following at this hour. Have a wonderful Friday evening, and we leave you with the international weather.
Thanks, Bo-kyung, for that. And that's all for now. I'll be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.